about 2:30 in the afternoon, and it's just cooled off a bit. We've had a really bright and sunny day, and I'm just going to show you a flower bed which has really come to fruition in the last couple of days. We've got some great sweet peas that are really nice and long and can go in a vase. These are Shasta daisies, and they've been looking really beautiful, like a cream, pale yellow colour, really nice. And the calendula is just unbelievable. When you consider that I've already harvested heads off of these plants, it seemed to just spur the rest on, and now it's an absolute picture. 2 full beds of calendula. And when you dry them, they take a long time to dry. And of course, ultimately, once the moisture's gone, they're really just fine petals. And you get to the end of the drying process and you think you've had enough of the heads, and you think, no, actually I need a few more. But we're going to have no trouble at all having more heads up there. And this is an interesting dahlia. This is a leaf, I would call it black. It's actually a real dark burgundy colour, but it's got this beautiful white flower on it, and that shows up so well against the black foliage. This is penstemon, which is a really pretty bell-shaped flower. And we've got a few more of the sweet peas here. Again, nice long stems, and they smell absolutely wonderful. So I'm going to do a bit more harvesting of the heads of the calendula, and we'll hopefully have enough then for Mrs. K's calendula barn. I think it may be true to say that when you take the calendula heads off, it encourages more flowers to come along. And I don't know that to be a fact, but certainly the heading or removing of the heads that I've been doing doesn't seem to have harmed the flowering process in any way. And there's still, well, probably hundreds of flowers on there, and we've picked a whole bunch more now for the calendula barn. Well, there's a few clean-up jobs to do today. It's that time of year. I need to get the spares out of the cold frame. They're over now, really. They've served their purpose, and things like the runner beans that I kept by, they're no longer of any use. If I planted them, they wouldn't come on. Lettuce, there's a few lettuce left, which I think they're past their best, if I'm honest. And the odd brassicas and various bits and bobs that I kept have just got to the point now where they're too pot bound. They've not done well in pots, and they're not going to be any use in the garden. So I'll be clearing out the cold frame of all those spares, giving myself a bit of space, and that can hold any other flowers and plants that I'm bringing on for the autumn. And we'll have a look at a few of those a bit later on. The other thing is the strawberries that are in the hanging baskets. It's now time for those hanging baskets to come out. I'll try and salvage as much as I can of the compost, because I'm reusing that, and the strawberry plants that are over, I'll discard now. They'll go into the compost bin. I've taken the runners that I want, and they'll serve me well for next year's strawberries, and I may add some new strawberries. It's always interesting to add a different variety, and if I can get some and they're a reasonable price, I might add a different variety and just see how they go. It's always fun to experiment on the plot. So I'll get on and do a bit of those clearing jobs that I keep on top of things, so that we can get on with the growing season. So that's the cold frame cleared out and ready for whatever use I have for it next. Now, this sand that I put in, I wanted it to be a barrier for slugs and snails, and I'd say it wasn't 100% successful, but it certainly helped. So I'll continue to use that, and I might add more sand to it next year when it comes to doing the next batch of seedlings. So that's been really useful and a good lesson learned. And my strawberries up here are also dying back, and I'll be recovering what compost I can of them. So I've now got a huge amount of dried compost and plants that were spares that are over, and I'm going to work my way through, recover what I can and put the rest in the compost bin. So there we are. That's a mighty big job, lots of clearing up, and out of that process, what have I gained? Well, this is the old strawberry plants, and bearing in mind that strawberry plants are past their best after the second year, and third year not really very great. I tend to try and grow them from runners each year if possible, and I've taken those runners already, so they're not much use to me at all. This is spent compost and compostable greenery that will go into the one compost bin where I put that sort of stuff, and that'll get wet over the winter months and break down and should make reasonable compost for me to feed and reuse again next year. The compost that was good out of those, i.e. is friable and not full of weed, I've put into these two pots, and I've added to the most vigorous of the strawberry plants that I took out of the hanging baskets. And again, they'll winter over and we'll see how they fare, and I can use those if I need to. The empty baskets are ready for next year, and then all the pots recovered, again ready for sowing next year. And I think the lesson I learned this year was that I grew too many runner beans. I didn't need to grow that many, and everything else was about right. So now I'll ship all this stuff over to the compost bins, and that's a good job done. So the compost that I've got underway down here now consists of basically foliage from vegetables and various plants that I'm happy is not weeds, and this stuff which I've just taken out, which is roots and vegetable foliage, can go in there, and then that's going to just live there through the winter, and if I get a chance to turn it over I will. The main thing is to keep it damp and rotting really, and that will bulk up and make a reasonable compost for next year, and I'll probably have to feed it. This one is really good used compost, so that's almost ready for using again as long as I feed it, but for now I'm going to just store it there. It's old potato compost and that sort of thing where there's a bulk of material. This is my wormery compost, and to be honest it's pretty slow, but it is moist and it is getting underway, and the same with that wormery, and of course the rotary composter, which I'm still adding to and added some more foliage to this morning, and I just keep rotating that, and it certainly seems to be a fairly fast process, so I'm looking forward to emptying that out again and seeing what we've got. So I'll get this into there, and we've got another empty bin waiting if I need it. Probably when I take the potatoes out I'm going to need that extra space, and then I may well move all this when I get to tidying up the compost bin later on in the season. But to be honest, this is a job that can wait. There's plenty of time for that in the winter, and I get that all under control later on. Okay, so that's everything in. I'll just show you inside these. So that's all the waste foliage that's good material, and I've just added a whole load of old nettle feed, stinging nettle feed, so that's going to keep it moist and feed it. And this is the better compost, and again I've just added some nettle feed to that, which again will feed it and keep it moist. So we get the lids on those, and then I'll show you inside the rotary composter, and as you can see it's looking pretty good. and we'll keep turning that. It's nearly at the point where it's full, but as I add things it seems to break down and shrink a bit, so I'm just keeping going with it at the moment. But it's not going to be long before I take that out and have a good look. So we'll get the lid on there. There we go. So I'm going to be sowing a few more seeds now, and these are seeds really for the autumn, so they're going to go into the polytunnel. And if you're sowing seeds in the polytunnel this time of year, there's a tremendous risk that if we get a really bright day and a lot of heat, that they can wipe out seedlings, given that there's not very much compost in the small containers you use. So rather than sow them in a tray, which is at quite high risk, I sow them pretty much individually into reasonable sized modules. That gives them the most chance possible. And then I also put them in a tray that's got no holes in it, so that when I water them, the water gathers in the base of the tray. And that means that seedlings in a very hot environment like the polytunnel have got the best chance of success. And I'm going to sow some more turnips. The turnips that I sowed earlier on in the year we're now harvesting, and they're great, but we want more for the autumn, and then we can put those together with swedes and they go in stews. So more turnip at this stage for later on in the year. And then I'm also going to sow some coriander into the polytunnel, and I'll put those in modules and then take them out of the modules and put them in the bed where I've now taken out the beetroot and the lettuce. And that will give me a crop of coriander, quite a significant crop with that many plants at the end of the autumn. And we'll trim all those leaves off and put them into ice cubes for adding to dishes. So I'll get on and sow. So I'm fitting these seedlings in between the tomatoes again, and I've got a few trays in here already. I've got a couple of kale plants which I'm going to just move across, and then I can take that tray out. There we go. And then I'm going to try and get this tray into that space just there. And there we go. They will hopefully come along nicely, and we'll have more turnips and more coriander. Coriander will go in that bed, and the turnips will go straight out into the spaces that start to develop in the raised beds outside. So that's that job done, and we'll carry on growing. Now the pumpkins and squash have all got underway quite nicely. So you can see the odd fruit starting to form, and these really are getting their runners away, which is great. There's some big flowers inside these and a nice fruit on that one. And this is the luxury pumpkin, so I'm really keen to get some pumpkins from that. This is also doing really well, and I thought this was going to die back, but it's actually, the runners are getting going and everything's turned nice and green. And this is the butternut squash, and again here we've got some fruits forming, which is great, and these runners are also getting away. And same here, plenty of flowers on those. This section was a bit dubious, but we can see that the main plant is coming out of there, and this one is a complete waste of time, and that was a courgette, and that's going. This one here I had my little doubts about, but it does seem to have recovered somewhat, so we can let that one carry on. And this space is completely vacant. Now everything seems to be doing well, and it will really start growing prolifically as we get into the warmer parts of July and August. But I am going to put a plant in there. I've got the plants left that were part of my trial to sow all my old seed of pumpkins and squash and see what came along nicely. So I'm going to pick the best out of those and pop it into that hole. And I might pop one each into those two as well. And okay, so that might be a bit overkill, but if they get going and they turn out to be stronger plants than these two, which are fairly slow, then I'll just cut the stems on these and let the others grow on. So I'll get those other plants out of the polytunnel, see what's the best, and pop one in there. Now there's not much between these, but they're certainly doing all right. And what's this one? Marina de Chogia. And we've got Queensland Blue. So, what are we going to have? Let's have this one. So the rest of these plants are destined for the compost bin, and they've served me well. We've got some cucumbers here and some more courgettes, but I think we've had enough of planting of this type of plant for this season. I do hope you enjoyed the video today. If you did, click the subscribe button, click the like button, and if you want updates from me each time I upload a video, click the bell and select all. I do hope you have a great day. Diolch yn fawr.